Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the stars through the massive viewport. The ship cut through space like a knife, dark, hull gleaming under the distant light of Sol. 23 years had passed since humanity first reached beyond their home system, and the colonies were thriving. Or so they thought. The communication console began flashing red. Lieutenant Sarah Kim turned from her station, her face pale. "Captain, we're receiving an emergency transmission from Kepler Station." Morrison moved to the console quickly. Station was humanity's pride and joy, the first permanent colony established outside the Sol system. Over 50,000 people called it home now. The transmission crackled with static, but the voice was clear enough to understand. "This is Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner at Kepler Station. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack by unknown alien forces. They came without warning. They're not trying to communicate. They're killing everyone they find." The bridge fell silent. Morrison felt his blood turn cold. This was the nightmare scenario every human commander had trained for but hoped would never come. Turner's voice continued through the static. "The attackers call themselves the Zephyrian Hegemony. Their ships are unlike anything we've seen. They're targeting civilians first. Colony ships, the residential sectors, even the children's facilities. This isn't conquest. This is extermination." Morrison grabbed the communications panel. "Turner, this is Captain Morrison of the UES Vengeance. What's your current status? How many ships are attacking?" The reply took several seconds to arrive. "Captain Morrison, thank God. We count at least 40 enemy vessels. They're using some kind of energy weapon that cuts through our shields like paper. Our defense platforms are gone. The orbital docks are burning. We've lost contact with most of the surface colonies." Morrison turned to his communications officer. "Get me Admiral Carter at Terra Command. Priority Alpha." Within minutes, Admiral Lisa Carter appeared on the main screen. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly, and her blue eyes were sharp with focus. She had commanded Earth's defenses for over a decade, and Morrison had never seen her look worried. "Until now, Captain Morrison, I've been monitoring the transmission from Kepler. How reliable is this intelligence?" "Turner is one of our best officers, Admiral. If he says they're under attack, they're under attack." Carter nodded. "The transmission is being analyzed now. Dr. Maya Rodriguez at the Strategic Defense Institute is pulling apart every detail. What she's found so far is disturbing." The screen split, showing Dr. Rodriguez in her laboratory. She was young for such an important position, but her mind was sharp as a razor. She had helped design many of Earth's current weapon systems. "Captain Morrison, Admiral Carter, what we're seeing in this transmission changes everything. The attacking ships use technology we don't understand. But more importantly, they seem to view humans as some kind of threat that must be eliminated completely." Morrison frowned. "What do you mean? You've never had contact with the Zephyrian Hegemony before." Rodriguez pulled up images from the transmission. The alien ships looked like they were grown rather than built, with smooth curves and a crystalline appearance. They moved through space with an alien grace that was both beautiful and terrifying. The fragments of their communications that we've decoded suggest they've been hunting human colonies systematically. They call us an abomination that must be cleansed from the galaxy. This wasn't a random attack, Captain. This was planned." "Admiral?" Carter's face was grim. "How many other colonies might be at risk?" "All of them," Rodriguez replied. "From what we can tell, the Zephyrians have been tracking our expansion for years. They know where our colonies are. They know our ship designs. They've been studying us." The transmission from Kepler crackled back to life. Turner's voice was strained now, filled with desperation. "All human vessels, this is Kepler Station. The enemy is beginning their final assault on the main colony. We've evacuated who we can, but thousands are still trapped. If anyone receives this message, tell Earth that we fought. Tell them we didn't surrender." Morrison felt anger burning in his chest. These weren't soldiers dying at Kepler. They were families, children, scientists, farmers, people who had left Earth to build a better future among the stars. Admiral Morrison said, his voice steady despite his rage, "Request permission to proceed to Kepler immediately." Carter shook her head. "Negative, Captain. You're one ship against 40. We need to mobilize the entire fleet. Admiral, by the time we mobilize the fleet, everyone at Kepler will be dead. And if we send ships one at a time, we'll lose them. All, Captain Morrison, I'm ordering you to return to Earth immediately. We're activating Protocol 7. Morrison's eyes widened. Protocol 7 was the complete mobilization of Earth's military forces. It had never been used before, not even during the worst conflicts in human history. Protocol 7, Admiral? The entire fleet? Every ship, captain, every weapon, every soldier. If these Zephyrians want to hunt humans, they're about to learn. What happens when you hunt a predator? Rodriguez interrupted. Captain Admiral, there's something else. The Zephyrians seem to have never encountered resistance like this before. Their communications suggest they expected quick surrender after their first attacks. They don't understand why humans keep fighting, even when defeat seems certain. Morrison almost smiled. They don't know us very well, do they? Captain, they don't. And that might be our advantage. The transmission from Kepler suddenly cut to static. Turner's voice was gone, replaced by an alien sound that chilled everyone who heard it. It was musical, almost beautiful, but completely inhuman. Admiral Carter stood straighter. That's it then. Captain Morrison, set course for Earth. Maximum speed. Dr. Rodriguez, I want every piece of intelligence you can extract from that transmission. I want options for weapons that can hurt these crystalline ships. Morrison turned to his crew. You heard the Admiral? Plot a course for Earth. Maximum burn. As the Vengeance turned toward home, Morrison looked back at the stars where Kepler Station had been calling for help. Somewhere out there, an alien race had made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had attacked humanity's children. Now, they would learn what Earth's children had learned long ago. So when you fight a human, you better kill them quickly. Because if you don't, they'll find a way to kill you instead. The hunt was about to begin. But the Zephyrians had chosen the wrong prey. Earth's orbital shipyards had never seen anything like it. Ships from across the Sol system were arriving every hour, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. The asteroid mining fleets from the Belt, the patrol ships from Mars, the heavy cruisers from Jupiter's moons. All of them heading toward Earth's largest naval station. Fleet Admiral Connor Blake stood in the command center watching the massive display screen. Each dot of light represented a warship, and there were hundreds of them. His weathered face showed no emotion, but inside he felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. In 40 years of military service, he had never led a fleet this. Large Captain Jake Morrison's ship, the UES Vengeance, docked with the orbital station 12 hours after leaving its patrol route. Morrison walked quickly through the corridors, toward the briefing room, passing crews loading weapons and supplies. The entire station buzzed with activity. Everyone knew this was different from any previous deployment. In the main briefing room, Morrison found Captain Sophie Williams waiting for him. Her ship, the UES Retribution, was one of the newest in the fleet. She was younger than Morrison, but had earned her command through skill and determination. Her dark eyes held the same anger that Morrison felt about Kepler Station.
Oh, Jake, she
said as he approached. Any word from Kepler since yesterday? Morrison shook his head. Nothing. Complete silence. Either their transmitters are destroyed or... He didn't finish the sentence. They both knew what silence probably meant. Fleet. Admiral Blake entered the room, and the assembled captains stood at attention. Blake was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his younger days as a fighter pilot. He had fought in the Mars conflicts and the asteroid wars, but those had been human against human. This was something entirely new. Be seated, Blake said. We have a lot to cover. Dr. Maya Rodriguez followed Blake into the room, carrying a datapad and looking tired. She had been working for 24 hours straight, analyzing every piece of information from the Kepler transmission. Dr. Rodriguez will brief you on what we know about the enemy, Blake said. Rodriguez moved to the front of the room and activated the display screen. Images of the alien ships appeared, along with technical data and communication fragments. Zephyrian hegemony is unlike any threat we imagined, she began. Their ships appear to be grown rather than built, using some kind of organic crystal technology. They're fast, well-armed, and their energy shields are extremely effective against conventional weapons. Captain Williams leaned forward. How effective? Defense platforms at Kepler were destroyed in minutes. Ships that should have been able to hold their own were cut apart without inflicting significant damage. Morrison studied the alien ship designs. They were beautiful in a strange way, but he could see the weapons ports and the smooth lines that suggested speed. What about their numbers? That's where it gets worse, Rodriguez continued. The attack on Kepler was just one battle group. Our analysis of their communications suggests they have much larger fleets available. They call it the Grand Armada. Blake stepped forward. Tell them about the intelligence we've gathered on the species itself. Rodriguez changed the display to show fragments of decoded alien communications. The Zephyrians evolved on a world they call the Garden of Harmony. It was a peaceful planet with no major predators and abundant resources. They developed technology over thousands of years without significant warfare. So they're not fighters? Asked Captain Morrison. That's the interesting part. They are fighters, but not like us. They view violence as a necessary tool for what they call galactic purification. They believe primitive species must be eliminated to make room for more advanced civilizations. Captain Williams looked puzzled. Kata said, but they attacked us without provocation. How does that fit their philosophy? Rodriguez pulled up more data. They've been studying humanity for decades. Our expansion into space, our military capabilities, our history. They concluded that humans are too violent and unpredictable to be allowed to spread across the galaxy. Morrison felt his anger rising again. They decided to exterminate us because we're too violent. Exactly. From their perspective, humans are dangerous primitives who will eventually threaten more civilized species. They see the attack on our colonies as preventive action. Blake moved to the tactical display, showing the Sol system. Commander Ryan Foster has been developing our response strategy based on this intelligence. Ryan? Commander Foster stood up from his seat. He was a young officer with a brilliant tactical mind. He had studied every major battle in human history and applied those lessons to space warfare. The Zephyrians have superior technology and numbers, Foster began. But they have weaknesses we can exploit. First, they've never faced an enemy that fights like humans do. Their previous conquests were against species that surrendered quickly when faced with superior firepower. What's our advantage? Williams asked. We don't surrender, Foster said simply. Human military doctrine is based on centuries of warfare. On Earth, we understand that battles are won by the side that keeps fighting when the other side gives up. The Zephyrians expect their enemies to be reasonable. We're not reasonable when our families are threatened. Morrison smiled grimly. Else Foster changed the display to show human ship formations. Our ships are smaller and more maneuverable than theirs. We can't match their firepower directly, but we can hit them fast and hard from multiple directions. They seem to prefer formal battle formations. We prefer chaos. Dr. Rodriguez added more information. There's something else. The Zephyrians have never lost a major battle. Their entire military strategy is based on overwhelming force leading to quick victory. They don't know how to handle a prolonged fight against a determined enemy. Blake nodded. That's our strategy. Make this fight last as long as possible. Make them pay for every system, every ship, every life. We show them what happens. When you attack a species that evolved by fighting for survival every single day, Captain Williams studied the tactical projections. What about their Grand Armada, if they send everything they have? Then we show them why Earth is called a death world, Blake replied. Every species in the galaxy evolved to fit their environment. Peaceful worlds create peaceful species. Earth created us. Foster pulled up historical data. The Zephyrians have conquered 47 different species over the past 1,000 years. Every single conquest followed the same pattern. Massive show of force, quick surrender, then systematic elimination of the conquered species. Them think we'll follow that pattern? Morrison asked. 'Cause it always worked before, Rodriguez answered. They've never encountered a species that was forged by constant warfare. They don't understand that humans see impossible odds as a challenge, not a reason to give up. Blake moved to the center of the room. Gentlemen, ladies, we're going to give the Zephyrians something they've never experienced. We're going to show them what war looks like when both sides refuse to quit. But we have one advantage they'll never understand. What's that, Admiral? Williams asked. Blake's expression was hard as steel. They're fighting to eliminate a threat. We're fighting to protect our children. There's no force in the universe stronger than that. The room fell silent as the captains absorbed the weight of what was coming. Somewhere beyond the stars, an alien armada was preparing to destroy humanity. But humanity was preparing something the aliens had never seen before. They were preparing to fight like humans. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system like a swarm of angry hornets. 12 dreadnoughts led the formation, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. Behind them came 36 cruisers and over 100 smaller ships. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Fleet Admiral Blake stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Dominator, studying the tactical display. The system looked wrong. Where Kepler Station should have been broadcasting navigation signals and civilian traffic, there was only silence. The orbital facilities that had taken 20 years to build were gone. Debris fields marked where they had once stood. Captain Morrison brought the Vengeance alongside the flagship. His ship's sensors were among the best in the fleet, and what they found made his blood boil. The enemy was still here, Admiral Morrison reported over the communication channel. I count 28 alien vessels positioned around Kepler Prime. They're not hiding, they're waiting for us. Blake nodded grimly. The Zephyrians knew the human fleet was coming. They had stayed in the system like hunters waiting at a watering hole. It was exactly the kind of arrogance that Blake had hoped to see. Captain Sophie Williams moved her ship, the Retribution, into formation with the main battle group. Her crew had been preparing for this moment since leaving Earth. Every weapon was loaded, every system was at maximum power. All ships, this is Fleet Admiral Blake, he announced over the Fleet Communication Network. We're going to try diplomacy first, but be ready for anything. Blake opened a general communication channel to the entire system. This is Fleet Admiral Connor Blake of the United Earth Forces. We demand to speak with the commander of the alien vessels in this system. The response came within minutes. The voice was strange, musical, and completely inhuman. When the translation came through, the words sent a chill through every human who heard them. I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Hegemony. Damn. You have arrived to witness the purification of this system. Your species has been judged unworthy of existence. Surrender your vessels and accept peaceful termination. Resistance will only prolong your suffering.
Howie.
Blake felt his jaw tighten. These aliens spoke about genocide like it was a medical procedure. Commander Veltar, this system contains human colonies with civilian populations. We demand immediate cessation of hostilities and the return of our people. The contamination has already been cleansed, Veltar replied. No humans remain alive in this system. Your arrival changes nothing. Submit to purification or be destroyed. The communication ended. Blake looked around his bridge at his crew. Every face showed the same expression. The aliens had murdered everyone at Kepler Station. Men, women, children, entire colony wiped out like an infection. Admiral, reported Commander Foster from the tactical station, the alien ships are moving into attack formation. They're not waiting for our response. Blake activated the fleet channel. All ships, weapons free. Show these murderers what happens when they threaten human civilians. The first shots came from the Zephyrian fleet. Beams of pure energy lanced across space, striking the human formation. The used Defender, one of the smaller cruisers, took a direct hit to its forward shield generators. The ship staggered but kept fighting. Captain Morrison opened fire with the Vengeance's main guns. Particle beams and missiles streaked toward the nearest alien vessel. The enemy ship's shields flared. As the weapons struck, but held firm, the return fire was immediate and devastating. Their shields are stronger than our intelligence suggested, Morrison reported. We're going to need concentrated fire to break through. Captain Williams had a different idea. The Retribution was one of the fastest ships in the fleet, built for hit-and-run tactics. Instead of trading shots with the larger alien vessels, she targeted their flanks. "This is Williams," she announced. "I'm taking my squadron around their left flank. Draw their attention while we hit them from the side." The Retribution and 5 other cruisers broke formation and accelerated toward the edge of the alien formation. The Zephyrian ships turned to track them, just as Williams had hoped. Lieutenant Commander Beth Harper commanded the UES Defiance, one of the ships following Williams. Harper was young for her position, but she had earned her command through skill and determination. As they approached the alien flank, she saw her opportunity. "Captain Williams," Harper reported, "I've got a clear shot at that big crystalline ship. Its shields are facing the main fleet." "Take it," Williams ordered. Harper's ship fired everything it had at the exposed alien vessel. The combined firepower of 6 human cruisers struck the Zephyrian ship simultaneously.
Ow.
For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the alien vessel's crystal hull began to crack. The Zephyrian ship exploded in a burst of light that illuminated the entire battle. It was the first alien vessel humanity had ever destroyed, and the psychological impact was immediate. Commander Veltar's voice came over the communication channel. It's no longer calm and musical. "Impossible. Our vessels are superior. How did primitive savages penetrate our defenses?" Fleet Admiral Blake smiled grimly. "We're just getting started." But the aliens were learning too. The remaining Zephyrian ships changed their formation, clustering together so their shields overlapped. In return, fire became more concentrated and deadly. The U's Triumph took multiple hits and began venting atmosphere. Captain Rodriguez, no relation to the doctor, ordered his crew to abandon ship. But as the lifeboats launched, Rodriguez stayed at his post and rammed his dying ship into an alien cruiser. Both vessels disappeared in a massive explosion. "Captain?" Williams found herself surrounded by 3 enemy ships. The Retribution's shields were failing, and her weapons were running low on power. That's when she made a decision that would become legend in the human fleet. "This is Williams to all ships," she announced calmly. "I'm going to ram the command ship. Make it count." The Retribution accelerated directly toward the largest Zephyrian vessel. Enemy fire tore through the ship's hull, but Williams kept her course steady. At the last second, she activated the ship's self-destruct. The explosion took out the alien command ship and 2 escorts. It also eliminated one of humanity's finest captains and her entire crew. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, both fleets were bloodied. The humans had lost 8 ships and over 3,000 personnel. The Zephyrians had lost 12 vessels and their local commander, but something had changed. The surviving Zephyrian ships withdrew to the outer system instead of pressing their attack. Commander Veltar's replacement sent a message to the hegemony, High Command, that would change the course of the war. "The humans fight like nothing we have encountered," the message read. "They do not retreat when damaged. They do not surrender when outnumbered. They become more dangerous as the battle continues. They appear to view death in combat as acceptable if it harms the enemy. This is not warfare as we understand it. This is madness." Fleet Admiral Blake received the decoded alien message 12 hours later. He read it twice, then smiled for the first time since leaving Earth. The Zephyrians were beginning to understand what they had started. They had attacked a species that considered warfare not just a tool, but an art form. They would learn the difference between fighting for purification and fighting for survival. The real war was just beginning. 3 days after the first battle, Commander Veltar floated in his command chamber aboard the surviving Zephyrian flagship. His crystalline body pulsed with colors that showed fear and confusion. The chamber around him grew organic weapons and communication devices from the living walls of his ship. Veltar had sent his report to the Hegemony High Command immediately after the battle. The response had come swiftly and without mercy. The High Command blamed him for losing ships to primitive aliens. They were sending the Grand Armada to finish what he had failed to complete. The Grand Armada was the largest military force that Zephyrian hegemony had ever assembled. Over 1,000 ships of various sizes, commanded by Supreme Commander Zarthik himself. It had never been defeated in 300 years of warfare, but Veltar had fought the humans. He knew something. The High Command did not understand. These creatures from the third planet of Sol were different from every other species the hegemony had encountered. Meanwhile, Fleet Admiral Blake was using the respite to strengthen his position. The human fleet had withdrawn to the outer edge of the Kepler system, but they had not left. Blake was waiting for reinforcements and gathering intelligence.
Captain, Amy Stone had been the biggest surprise of the battle's aftermath.
Stone commanded a small patrol ship that had been in the outer system when the Zephyrians first attacked. Instead of fleeing, she had taken her ship to the surface of Kepler Prime and organized the surviving colonists into a resistance force. Stone's report to Blake was both encouraging and disturbing. "Admiral, we've got maybe 2,000 survivors scattered across the planet. The aliens hit the major population centers first, but people in the remote settlements had time to hide." Study the tactical display showing Stone's position. "What's your assessment of enemy ground forces?" "That's the interesting part, sir. They don't have any. The Zephyrians bombarded the cities from orbit, then sent down small scout teams to confirm the kills. When we ambushed one of their teams, they didn't send reinforcements. They just pulled back to their ships. Captain Morrison, whose ship was undergoing repairs, joined the conversation from the surface. He had taken a shuttle down to coordinate with Stone's ground forces. "Admiral, I've examined the alien equipment we captured. These beings are physically fragile. Their technology compensates for what they lack in natural durability." Dr. Maya Rodriguez, who had arrived with the second wave of human ships, was analyzing the captured Zephyrian technology in her mobile laboratory. Her findings were revolutionary. Admiral Blake Rodriguez reported, "The aliens' physical structure is completely different from ours. They evolved on a world with low gravity and no significant predators. Their bones are hollow like birds, but they're not built for flight. They're built for a world where nothing tried to hurt them." Blake frowned. "What does that mean for our tactics?" "It means they can't handle the kind of punishment humans take for granted. A hit that would bruise a human could kill a Zephyrian. But more importantly, they don't understand pain as a motivator." Commander Foster, who had been developing new battle plans, looked up from his tactical projections. "Explain that, Doctor." Rodriguez pulled up biological scans of the captured alien equipment. "Humans evolved on a world that constantly tried to kill us. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, hostile weather. We learned to fight through pain and injury because stopping meant death. The Zephyrians never had that pressure." Captain Stone's. The voice came through the communication system from the planet's surface. "I can confirm that when we wounded the aliens in our ambush, they immediately retreated. Even minor injuries seemed to panic them." Morrison nodded from his position with the ground forces. "They also seemed confused by our willingness to take casualties. In the space battle, they kept expecting us to withdraw when we started losing ships. When we didn't, it seemed to break their tactical planning." Blake was beginning to see the larger picture. "So they're not just technologically different. They're psychologically different." "Exactly," Rodriguez confirmed. "They view warfare as a necessary but distasteful task. Something to be completed quickly and efficiently. They don't understand that humans have been practicing warfare for thousands of years, not as a tool of civilization, but as a requirement for survival." Foster added his analysis. "Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming force leading to quick surrender. They've conquered 47 species using the same strategy every time. Show massive firepower, demand surrender, then eliminate the conquered species cleanly." "But we didn't surrender," Blake said. "Oh, sir, we didn't. And they don't know what to do about that." Captain Stone provided more intelligence from the surface. "Admiral, the aliens have been monitoring our communications. They seem particularly confused by our use of profanity and aggressive language. During combat, our own communications are formal and polite, even during battle." Morrison laughed grimly. "They've never heard a human soldier under fire. Wait until they meet a Marine squad that's been taking casualties." Dr. Rodriguez had been working on more than just alien biology. She had been developing new weapons based on captured Zephyrian technology. But her most important discovery wasn't about weapons at all. "Admiral, I've found something in their computer systems. The Zephyrians call Earth a death world in their classification system. They knew our planet was hostile before they ever encountered us." Blake leaned forward. "What exactly does that mean?" "It means they understand that Earth is more dangerous than most inhabited planets. What they don't understand is what that did to the species that evolved their US." Foster pulled up comparative data on his tactical display. According to their records, most intelligent species evolved on worlds they classify as garden worlds or stable worlds. Planets with mild climates, abundant resources, and few natural threats. "And Earth?" Blake asked. "Earth is classified as a Class 5 death world. Extreme weather, aggressive predators, frequent natural disasters, and multiple extinction events. According to their data, most Class 5 worlds never develop intelligent life." Morrison's voice came from the surface. "But we did." "Yes," Rodriguez said. "And that makes us unique in their experience. Every other species they've conquered was shaped by environments that encouraged cooperation and peace. We were shaped by an environment that demanded constant vigilance and the ability to fight for survival." Blake studied the strategic implications. "So when they look at us, they see something that shouldn't exist. Species from a death world that not only survived but thrived enough to reach the stars. More than that," Rodriguez continued, "they see a species that treats warfare not as an unfortunate necessity, but as a natural part of existence. We don't just fight to win, we fight because fighting is what we do." Captain Stone's report from the planet provided the final piece of the puzzle. "Admiral, we've intercepted more alien communications. They're requesting immediate reinforcement from something they call the Grand Armada."
"There's something
else. They're asking for advice on how to fight an enemy that embraces destruction as readily as survival."
else."
Blake smiled for the first time since the battle. The Zephyrians were beginning to understand what they had awakened. They had picked a fight with a species that had been forged in the fires of a hostile world. A species that saw impossible odds not as a reason to surrender, but as a challenge. To overcome, the Grand Armada was coming. But it was coming to fight an enemy unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was coming to fight humans. And humans had been preparing for this fight their entire evolutionary history. The Grand Armada arrived at the edge of the Kepler system like a swarm of crystalline death. Over 1,000 ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with alien beauty. The largest vessels were the size of small moons, grown rather than built, with organic curves that seemed to bend space around them. Supreme Commander Zarthik stood in the command chamber of his flagship, Eternal Harmony. His crystalline body was larger than most Zephyrians, colored in deep blues and purples that showed his ancient age and high rank. He had commanded the Grand Armada for over 2 centuries and had never lost a battle. The human fleet looked pitiful. By comparison, Fleet Admiral Blake had managed to gather every available ship from nearby systems, but he could only field 300 vessels against the alien armada. The humans were outnumbered more than 3 to 1. Blake stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The numbers were terrible, but he had not expected to match the alien ship for ship. His strategy was different. Captain Morrison had returned to space aboard the Vengeance, leaving the ground forces under Captain Stone's command. His ship had been repaired and upgraded with new weapons based on Dr. Rodriguez's analysis of alien technology. Every human vessel had received similar modifications. "Commander." Foster watched the alien formation with professional interest. "Admiral, they're maintaining perfect geometric patterns. It's beautiful, but it's also predictable." "How predictable?" Blake asked. "Very. Their entire formation is designed for maximum firepower concentration and overlapping shield coverage. But it's rigid. If we can break their formation, their advantages start to disappear." Captain Beth Harper commanded the UES Revenge, a new ship built to replace the vessels lost in the first battle. She had been promoted after her actions at the previous engagement, and her crew was eager to prove themselves. "Supreme Commander, Zarthik opened a communication channel to the entire system. His voice was ancient and musical, carrying the weight of centuries of conquest. Primitive humans of the Deathworld Sol 3, I am Supreme Commander Zarthik of the Eternal Harmony. You have witnessed the futility of resistance against the hegemony. Your small fleet cannot stand against the Grand Armada. Surrender now and accept peaceful termination. This is your final opportunity for a merciful end. Fleet Admiral Blake responded immediately. Supreme Commander, this is Fleet Admiral Connor Blake. I have a counteroffer. Get out of our system, and we might let some of you live. Response was immediate and filled with what sounded like shock. You dare mock the Grand Armada? Your species has clearly learned nothing from the purification of your colony. Very well. We will be educated in the proper order of the galaxy. The Grand Armada began to move forward in perfect formation. Energy weapons that could melt asteroids began charging. The smaller human fleet looked like insects facing a hurricane. Blake activated the fleet communication network. Ships. This is Admiral Blake. Remember what we learned about these aliens. They expect us to break and run when we see their numbers. Instead, we're going to do what humans do best. We're going to hurt them. The first salvo from the Grand Armada lit up space like a miniature sun. Hundreds of energy beams struck the human formation. The used stalwart took a direct hit and exploded immediately. Two other ships suffered major damage and began falling back. But instead of retreating, the human fleet charged forward. Captain Morrison led the assault with a squadron of destroyers. Their smaller size made them harder targets, and they moved. Through the alien formation like sharks through a school of fish, the Vengeance fired everything it had at the nearest alien dreadnought. Captain. Harper took the Revenge straight at the alien flagship. Her weapons were no match for the massive vessels, shields, but that wasn't her goal. She was drawing attention away from Morrison's attack. Dr. Rodriguez, monitoring the battle from her mobile laboratory, had prepared a special surprise. As the human ships closed with the enemy, she activated the virus she had developed from captured alien technology. The virus spread through the Zephyrian communication network like wildfire. It didn't destroy their systems, but it created chaos in their perfect formations. Ships began receiving conflicting orders. Targeting systems started providing false information. Supreme Commander Zarthik felt his perfect armada beginning to falter. Impossible. How are primitives disrupting our network? Our technology is superior. Commander Foster, monitoring the alien communications, smiled as he translated the confused chatter. Admiral, their commanders are losing control of their formations. They're starting to break apart. Blake saw the opportunity immediately. All ships, concentrate fire on their command vessels. Take out their ability to coordinate. The human fleet swarmed the confused alien ships like angry wasps. Captain Morrison's destroyers struck at the alien flanks while Harper's cruisers hit their centers. The disciplined alien formation began to collapse into individual battles. Captain Stone, watching from the planet's surface, provided crucial intelligence. Admiral, the aliens are landing troops. They're trying to secure the ground while their fleet fights. Morrison responded immediately. Stone, can you handle them? We're about to find out, Stone replied. The battle on the planet's surface was brief and one-sided. The Zephyrian ground forces were even more fragile than their space crews. Human colonists armed with mining equipment and improvised weapons scattered the alien troops within hours. In space, the battle was reaching its climax. The Grand Armada was still powerful, but it was no longer the disciplined force that had conquered 47 worlds. Ships were fighting independently, and human tactics were proving effective. Captain Harper found herself face to face with the alien flagship. The Eternal Harmony was massive and beautiful, but its shields were focused. On the main battle, Harper saw her chance. This is Harper to all ships in my sector. I'm going to ram the command ship. All vessels concentrate fire on my target. Combined firepower of 6 human ships struck the Eternal Harmony simultaneously. For a moment, the ancient flagship shields held. Then they collapsed. And Harper drove the Revenge deep into the alien vessel's crystal hull. The explosion could be seen across the entire battlefield. Supreme Commander Zarthik, leader of the Grand Armada for over 2 centuries, died along with his flagship and Harper's crew. The psychological impact on the Zephyrian fleet was immediate and devastating. They had never lost a Supreme Commander. They had never seen their most powerful vessel destroyed by a ship a fraction of its size. Individual alien ships began withdrawing from the battle. Then entire squadrons started retreating. The perfect discipline of the Grand Armada crumbled. As panic spread through their ranks, Fleet Admiral Blake watched the alien retreat with grim satisfaction. The humans had lost 40 ships and thousands of personnel, but they had broken the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Foster monitored the alien communications as the retreat continued. Admiral, they're requesting immediate reinforcement from the Hegemony Home Fleet. But more importantly, they're advising all Zephyrian forces to avoid contact with human vessels. Blake nodded. The first phase of the war was over. Zephyrians had learned that humans didn't fight. Like other species, now they would have to decide whether to escalate the conflict or find another solution. But Blake knew there would be no negotiation. The aliens had murdered an entire human colony. That debt could only be paid in blood. The hunt was about to begin in earnest. The retreat of the Grand Armada lasted only 6 hours. Then it stopped. The surviving Zephyrian ships formed a defensive line at the edge of the Kepler system, but they no longer advanced. For the first time in their species' history, they had been forced to withdraw from a battle. Fleet Admiral Blake studied the tactical display from his temporary flagship. The UES Retribution. His original command ship had been destroyed in the battle, but the fight was far from over. The aliens still outnumbered his fleet 2-1. But something fundamental had changed. Commander Foster intercepted alien communications that revealed the depth of their crisis. Admiral, the Zephyrian fleet commanders are arguing among themselves. Some want to retreat completely. Others are demanding reinforcements from their homeworlds. Captain Morrison, whose ship had survived the battle, with heavy damage, joined the conversation from the repair bay. "What about their morale?" Broken Foster replied. "They're calling humans deathbringers and void demons. They can't understand how we keep fighting when we're outnumbered and outgunned." Blake nodded grimly. The psychological advantage was now completely on the human side. But he knew this was the critical moment. If he let the aliens regroup and bring more ships, the next battle might go differently. "All ships," Blake announced over the fleet communication network. "Prepare for pursuit operations. We're going to finish this." Captain Amy Stone's voice came through from the planet's surface. "Admiral, we've secured the ground completely. The surviving aliens have barricaded themselves in their landing ships. They're not fighting anymore. They're just hiding." Dr. Maya Rodriguez, working frantically in her mobile laboratory, had been analyzing data from the battle. Her findings would change human understanding of their enemies forever. "Admiral Blake," Rodriguez reported, "I've been studying the alien behavior patterns. They're not just tactically beaten. They're psychologically destroyed. Their entire worldview was based on being the superior species in the galaxy." Blake moved closer to her. "Station. Explain." "They've spent thousands of years conquering primitive species. Every victory reinforced their belief that they were the galaxy's rightful rulers. Losing to humans didn't just defeat their fleet, it shattered their fundamental understanding of reality." Morrison, listening from his ship, understood the implications. They can't process the idea that a species they considered primitive could beat them. "Exactly," Rodriguez continued, "but there's something else. I've detected communication signals leaving the system. They're not just reporting their defeat. They're warning the entire hegemony about humans." Commander Foster pulled up the intercepted messages. "Admiral, they're telling their government that humans are unlike any species they've encountered. They're recommending immediate peace negotiations." Blake felt a cold satisfaction. The Zephyrians were learning what happens when you attack humanity's children, but he also knew that this war couldn't end with just a retreat. The aliens had committed genocide at Kepler Station. That crime demanded a more permanent solution. "Foster, what's the status of the fleeing alien ships?" They're maintaining formation at the system's edge, but they're not leaving. It's like they're afraid to go home and report complete failure. Blake made his decision. All ships advance. On the alien position, any ship that tries to flee the system is to be destroyed. Captain Morrison understood immediately. Admiral, you're not going to let any of them escape. The galaxy needs to know what happens when you murder human civilians, Blake replied. We're going to send a message that will be remembered for 1,000 years. The human fleet advanced toward the alien position like wolves closing on wounded prey. The Zephyrian ships tried to form a defensive line, but their heart wasn't in the fight anymore. Many of their weapons were powered down. Some ships were already transmitting surrender signals. Blake ignored the surrender attempts. He had seen the remains of Kepler Station. He had read the reports of murdered children and families. Mercy was not an option. The final battle was more like an execution. Human ships surrounded the alien formation and systematically destroyed every vessel. The Zephyrians fought back desperately, but their coordination was gone. Their will to fight had been broken in the previous engagement, Captain. Morrison led the assault on the largest remaining alien ship. The vessel tried to flee, but the Vengeance was faster. Morrison's final torpedo strike broke the alien ships back, and it exploded in a brilliant flash of crystalline fragments. Captain Stone, watching from the planet, provided the ground perspective. Admiral, the aliens in the landing ships are requesting permission to surrender. They're offering to provide intelligence about their home worlds. Blake's response was immediate, negative. No prisoners, no survivors. They showed no mercy, too. Our people, they get none from us. The systematic destruction continued for 3 hours. When it ended, not a single Zephyrian ship remained intact. The proud Grand Armada that had conquered dozens of worlds was nothing but debris floating in. Space Dr. Rodriguez made one final discovery as she analyzed the wreckage. Admiral, I found something in their computer cores. Zephyrians kept detailed records of every species they've destroyed. Millions of intelligent beings across dozens of worlds. Blake studied the data with growing anger. The aliens hadn't just attacked humanity. They had been systematically exterminating intelligent life across the galaxy for thousands of years. Species that had never posed any threat were wiped out simply because the Zephyrians considered them inferior. Forward. This data to Earth Command, Blake ordered. The galaxy needs to know what the Zephyrian hegemony really was. Foster intercepted one final alien transmission as the last ship exploded. Admiral, that was a message to their homeworld. It was sent just before we destroyed their flagship. What did it say? The humans are coming. The Deathworld has awakened. Prepare for annihilation. Blake smiled coldly. The message would reach the Zephyrian homeworlds in a few weeks. By then, the human fleet would already be on its way. Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication system. Admiral, what are our orders? Blake looked at the debris field that had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Then he thought about the families that had died at Kepler Station. Children who would never grow up. Parents who had died protecting their young. Set course for the Zephyrian home system, Blake announced. We're going to finish what they started. News of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than any human ship could travel. Species that had hidden from the Zephyrians for centuries emerged from their hiding places. The Galactic communication network buzzed with a single message. The hegemony was broken. Dr. Rodriguez compiled her final report as the human fleet prepared for the journey to the alien homeworlds. Admiral, the implications of our victory go far beyond this system. We've announced humanity's presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Blake nodded. How do you think they'll react? Some species will see us as liberators. Others will see us as the new threat to fear. But all of them will know that Earth's children don't forgive genocide. The human fleet departed the Kepler system, leaving behind only wreckage and silence. Behind them, the ruins of an alien armada drifted in space. Ahead of them lay the Zephyrian homeworlds in the final chapter of a war that had started with a simple distress call. Humanity had evolved on a death world forged by millions of years of struggle and survival. Now the galaxy would learn what that evolution had created. They would learn that when you threaten human families, you awaken something that won't stop until justice is served. The hunt was far from over. It was just beginning.